Art is and it isn't, and now everyone knows. That's Bob Camblin right off the bat throwing a curveball.
And a real head scratcher,
Right. Welcome to the deep dive.
where we take the pile of sources you send our way and sift out the really thought-provoking stuff.
Today, we're diving deep into the world of Bob Camblin.
His own words, writings about his work, excerpts from books.
Quite a mix you've gathered for us.
Indeed. And our challenge is to untangle it all, to try to extract the essence of his thinking as an artist and his very singular perspective on the world.
For those of you who, like me, are always looking for a fast track to the good stuff, a quick but thorough route to those aha moments,
This deep dive into Camblin should be right up your alley. We'll connect some dots you might have missed.
and maybe even uncover some of the mysteries he left behind.
One thing that jumps out immediately is Camblin's comfort with paradox. It's right there in that opening quote.
That art is and it isn't idea.
Right. You, our listener, are no stranger to complex ideas, so let's consider how Camblin holds seemingly contradictory ideas in tension. He talks about common sense and the perfectly average, but pairs that with a deep appreciation for magic, even imagining a future where they meet in a bright gray space.
It suggests a mind that doesn't see the world in those simplistic either terms.
Exactly. He's not afraid of ambiguity. It's like he's searching for a middle ground where the logical and the intuitive can coexist.
And this carries over into his concept of a sixth sense, which he declares exists without a doubt, senza dubio.
It makes you wonder if this wasn't his way of validating that non-rational, intuitive part of understanding, the kind of knowing that science can't always fully explain.
Maybe for Camblin, the sixth sense was a more holistic way of perceiving the world, one that integrates both reason and intuition.
A richer, more complete way of seeing. And it makes you think, is he trying to tap into this sixth sense in his own art?
Is he trying to evoke that same sense in us as viewers?
Perhaps. He also speaks very powerfully about nature.
Writing about finding something in nature that completes you.
And then surrendering to it.
This is more than just about appreciating nature as a subject for art.
It's a deeper connection, an essential part of our being.
And the idea of surrender is interesting, isn't
It
it?
implies letting go of control, a willingness to become part of something larger.
Maybe this mirrors his artistic process as well, reaching a point where the conscious effort, the planning, gives way to a more intuitive flow.
Guided by his connection to the natural world.
And then there's his focus on light. The light is all you need. And he ties that to the idea of evolving, of growing, by simply doing your best.
With belief acting as an amplifier.
So it's like he's saying that with clarity of vision and genuine conviction in your actions, you can really achieve something.
A powerful combination. The light could be a metaphor for so many things. Clarity of intention, inspiration itself. And when that's coupled with hard work and an unwavering belief in that work.
The potential for growth becomes huge, both personally and creatively.
Absolutely. Then he brings up these four qualities.
Balance, patience, freedom, silence,
He sees them as vital for maintaining reality.
and moving away from pain.
Which is interesting because he then goes on to describe true love evolving into indifference as a form of protection.
An unusual take on love, to say the least.
But consider it within the context of balance. Maybe this indifference isn't about a lack of feeling, but about achieving emotional equilibrium.
A kind of shield.
Yes, a protection against the inevitable pain that intense emotions can bring. It's a pragmatic way of thinking about relationships.
And maintaining inner peace.
Exactly. And then we get to some of those pronouncements that are a bit more cryptic, a little harder to decode.
Like sublime in the ridiculous.
Or look for the forgotten, but become what you are. Less only is.
It's like we're starting to peel back layers here.
The first one, sublime in the ridiculous, suggests finding profoundness in the most unexpected places.
Even in absurdity.
Right. Think about art movements like Dadaism or surrealism, which I think likely influenced Camblin. They both found artistic merit in things that were unconventional, illogical even.
So maybe sublime in the ridiculous is his own take on this.
And then you have less only is, which has that Zen-like quality to it. The idea that by stripping away all the unnecessary stuff, we can arrive at some essential truth.
There's also a shift in how he talks about art's purpose. It seems to evolve from art for art's sake to art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or even art for survival's sake,
It's like he's moving away from art as a purely aesthetic pursuit,
towards something that's more deeply personal,
and maybe even necessary.
essential.
This evolution suggests a growing urgency in his work. Art becomes more than just an intellectual exercise. It becomes a way of engaging with life and maybe even making sense of his own existence.
And then he advises us to step off the train of thought.
To find true power.
And laughter.
It's that recurring theme, this idea that we need to get beyond our normal, linear, rational thinking to access something deeper.
Something truer.
More joyful.
And what's so fascinating is that he links this disruption of our thought patterns to both a greater sense of power and genuine humor.
Like our habitual ways of thinking are actually limiting us.
Holding us back from experiencing the world more fully.
Right. Then there's this, balancing and being for and against. He seems to really embrace contradiction.
Like acknowledging that things are rarely black and white.
But the world is full of nuance.
That reality isn't always so clear-cut.
Absolutely. This speaks to a sophisticated understanding of the world, recognizing that holding seemingly opposite viewpoints can actually lead to a more comprehensive and ultimately truthful perspective.
And some of his observations are just so simple, yet they carry so much weight. Like this one. The cosmos waves as me with tree leaves.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it?
Such a vivid way of expressing this idea of interconnectedness.
And it circles back to that profound connection to nature that we talked about. Even his comment that the slowness of a passing person could affect his writing. It points to a deep sensitivity to his surroundings.
That we're all interconnected, influencing each other in these subtle, unseen ways.
Precisely. And he seemed to really understand the limits of debate, of intellectual arguments. He once said that looking at his watercolor palette was much better than arguing.
It's a good reminder that sometimes things are best understood through direct experience.
Absolutely. The tangible reality of color, the way it interacts with light, those are things you just can't capture in an abstract argument.
And then he throws out these amazing philosophical questions about perception.
Oh, yeah. Things like, as people move away from us, do they diminish in our eyes or mind? Or relativity.
Really makes you think about how our understanding of reality, of relationships, is shaped by our perspective.
It goes deeper than just physical distance. It makes you question, what role do our minds play? What about the principles of relativity? How do they influence how we see and experience others?
He also had a very distinct view on communication, saying that you might learn something by arguing or even agreeing, but you do not communicate.
A crucial distinction. He's saying that true communication goes beyond just an intellectual exchange of information.
It has to involve something deeper.
A genuine empathy, a real understanding.
And this metaphor of the open gate and the broken fence, searching endlessly for this quarry, never knowing how big it is.
But still, you maintain faith.
It's a beautiful way of describing the artistic journey itself, the uncertainty of it.
The persistence.
The open gate and broken fence representing a lack of boundaries. No limitations on how you pursue creative expression?
And the unknown size of the quarry. That speaks to how elusive artistic inspiration can be.
And the need for faith to keep going.
Right. He also contrasted revolution and evolution.
Saying that revolution often comes from misunderstanding.
While evolution comes from understanding.
And he envisions this future balance in both the individual and collective mind.
It's a very optimistic outlook on societal progress. That true lasting change doesn't come from some sudden upheaval,
but through this gradual process of learning and understanding,
leading to a more harmonious state, both within ourselves and as a society as a whole.
And then there are these simple observations that sound like they could be proverbs.
Oh, like, you never miss the water till the well runs dry.
Right. Such simple reminders to appreciate what we have.
And often these straightforward statements hold these profound truths about the human experience.
Like our tendency to take things for granted until they're gone.
Exactly. He also had a way with words when describing nature, almost like haiku.
6 starlings sitting among broken branches. Look, no buds are growing.
So evocative.
It creates the sense of barrenness, maybe the end of a cycle.
Those concise snapshots invite us to stop and contemplate the details, to find deeper meanings in these ordinary moments in nature.
And then there's this one, which is more than just a nature observation. Poor fish, trapped by the changing tides. So much like us.
It's a beautiful and kind of sad comparison, right?
He's using this image from nature to reflect on our own human experience.
Of feeling stuck, limited by forces that we can't control.
And even when he's talking about transformation, he does it with a touch of whimsy. It wouldn't be so bad to come back as a fly if you knew your body would shine in the sun that way.
Shows a playful curiosity, appreciating beauty in the most unexpected forms.
It suggests a wider perspective on life, finding value and beauty even in things that are very different from ourselves.
Definitely. His imagery can be so vivid, so rich.
Like darning needles sew shimmerline tapestries of blue, green, and white bands.
He's constantly translating the world into art. His words are filled with these sensory details, turning everyday things into these dreamlike visual experiences.
And then you have these juxtapositions that seem so random.
Like Eater of Christians, Chimera, Byzantium, warm, cold, children's chair.
It's jarring, and it makes you wonder, is there some hidden connection he's making?
These unexpected pairings really challenge us to think differently, to consider connections that aren't obvious on the surface.
And then there are these small, fleeting moments that he captures, like fragile grayed lady, now tiptoe, now skirts high, sidewise, hasty retreat.
It's like a snippet of a story, a glimpse into a larger narrative.
And often we see these darker themes mixed with images of beauty.
Like fall, waxen feathers, flowers of burning petals, Ra, Icarus.
And then white magic, white lies, thoughts of twisted limbs and mind, the hidden fear scene. That shift is so powerful.
It's a reflection of the full spectrum of human experience.
Our aspirations and our anxieties.
Exactly. Light and shadow.
And he reflects on change and permanence, sometimes in very paradoxical ways, like this egg in brown leaves has a great secret of mine, that nothing changes.
Suggesting this illusion of stillness.
But then he writes, ragged wheels of silk, minuscule dragons observed by Buddha spiders, which implies this constant transformation.
It highlights that tension between stillness and change. On the surface, some things might appear unchanging, but on a deeper level, everything is in flux.
Always evolving.
Right. We also see reflections on time and mortality.
Like jawless monster, cold marble sundial of the church. Do the old men sleep?
Such a powerful image of aging, the passage of time, the inevitability of it.
And it makes you consider these big questions about our existence, about what it all means.
Right. What happens after?
He also hints at these hidden narratives, these inner worlds that are just below the surface.
Like blue pictures pulsing, the faded image breathes once, the tattooed hand waits.
It suggests that there are always these untold stories, layers of meaning that we don't immediately see.
And that line between what's alive and what's not, he plays with that too.
Seed pod, dragonfly, shriveled weed, or living thing, stirred by wind or God.
It makes you question what life really is.
Where it begins and ends.
It blurs those boundaries between the animate and the inanimate. Suggests this connection that runs through everything, and maybe even some guiding force, some intelligence at play.
And he finds so much beauty in things that we often overlook.
Like Blue Bottle Banquet. From the sea in summer come tide-washed necklaces.
It's about shifting your perspective, seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Exactly. Finding wonder in the everyday. He had a real gift for that.
And then there's a sense of loss, a feeling for the passage of time.
Like on Longboat, Memory of Summer Walks, I hear this is gone.
Or this one, which also touches on perception. The painted eye sees more than mine, and God damn it, I see nothing yet.
A feeling of nostalgia, longing for those moments that have slipped away.
And a frustration with our own limited perception, compared to the enduring nature of art, of memory itself.
Exactly, and even the creative act itself. The very process of making art seems to have fascinated him.
Like in This Strange Device, Whirled by a Figure of My Mind, a beautiful dance.
It really captures that magical moment of bringing an idea to life.
Transforming an internal vision into something real, something tangible.
Right. Of course, we can't forget his sense of humor, sometimes a bit sardonic.
Like gargoyles gargling water from Gothic churches. You missed me that time.
Always a bit playful, ironic. It adds another dimension to his personality.
And he had this way of going deep into memory and the subconscious.
Oh yes, lines like, hammock facing west, fingers knit to block the sun, become burning twigs.
And then nostalgia like desks and fish shouldn't be kept too long.
It's like he's exploring these deeper recesses of the mind.
The power of memory, how it can be so evocative, but also how dwelling in the past can be unhealthy.
Right. Let's shift gears now and talk about how Camblin viewed art and the artist's role.
He makes this bold statement. The artist today is the only free agent.
A strong claim. I think he's saying that artists are not bound by the usual constraints of society. Expectations, pressures to conform, the need for things to make logical sense.
That within the realm of art, the artist has this unique autonomy.
Exactly. He also predicted this move towards what we now call participatory art.
Which is pretty remarkable when you think about all the immersive, interactive art experiences we have today.
It's like he could see the future, this growing desire for audiences to be more involved in the creation of meaning.
And then there's his equation of religion with belief. Applying that to art, he says, if I believe it's art, then it is.
So he's basically saying, who needs these traditional definitions of art?
It challenges those old, rigid ways of categorizing things.
Exactly. He shifts the power from some external authority to the individual's own conviction. Like, I believe it, therefore it is, just like faith.
He seems to be fascinated by the idea that faith, discipline, communication, being can all be both helpful and hindering at the same time.
It's all about balance.
Finding that sweet spot.
Exactly, because even these seemingly positive qualities can become limitations if they're not approached with self-awareness.
And then he circles back to that opening line. Art is and it isn't, and now everyone knows. And then he equates love with art.
It's like he's saying they both share this elusive, almost indefinable quality.
That they're both these deeply personal, subjective experiences that defy easy explanation.
And often contradict themselves.
Right. He also talks about this idea of resist and submit, holding those two things in perfect balance.
A fundamental tension in art, in life itself, really.
This push and pull between asserting your own individual vision and being open to outside influences, the flow of the creative process.
And then there's this metaphor of the figure four trap. 4 times into the thing and 3 times back again. Stay out the last if lucky.
And he relates this to his own mistakes, to infinity.
The figure 4 trap, it could represent this cyclical process of creation, where each attempt gets you closer to, or maybe further from, what you're trying to achieve.
And the infinite mistakes. Maybe that's the artist always striving for perfection.
Which is ultimately unattainable.
And then he has this brilliant line, when understood, all truth is funny.
It's like he's saying that true understanding, deep understanding, brings a certain lightness.
A sense of perspective.
Like the deeper we delve into something, the more we can see the humor in it.
He also warns against the demon of being right.
And emphasizes the need to focus on the present action.
To just do.
Step off the train of thought, he urges us. It's like he's constantly calling us back to the present moment.
That being too attached to being right, overthinking everything, stifles our creativity.
Blocks us.
He also has a rather cynical view of historians.
Oh yeah, talking about how they tend to romanticize the idea of artistic madness once it's safe and comfortable in the past.
Like they're looking back with rose-colored glasses, creating a narrative that doesn't quite match the lived reality.
Right. He's skeptical of how history gets written, how the artist's story gets told after they're gone.
He believed we can train ourselves to be more open in our perception, that we can resist the tendency to shut things out that don't fit our existing understanding.
It's empowering, this idea that our ability to see and understand the world isn't fixed, that we can change it.
He also made this distinction between believing and knowing, saying that belief is often tied to how we're raised.
While mystics, he says, they know something else. Something that comes from direct experience.
And this kind of intuitive, experiential knowing is what he seems to value in art as well.
Absolutely. It's not just about accepting something intellectually, it's about a deeper understanding. A knowing that comes from direct engagement with the world.
And then he makes this very provocative statement about history. History is believable when it is creative.
He's really questioning the nature of historical narratives. Is it just about facts? Or is it about interpretation?
About how the storyteller chooses to frame those facts.
Oh, exactly. Like a work of art.
And he sees awareness, familiarity, and creativity as being so essential for how we engage with the world.
Awareness is the starting point.
Yeah.
Familiarity providing the foundation for real participation.
And creativity allowing us to transcend our limitations, to go beyond the known.
Exactly. It's fascinating how he defines cynicism. He calls it a type of creativity gone destructive and ego-oriented.
It's an interesting way to frame a seemingly negative trait.
He's acknowledging that even cynicism can stem from a creative impulse. But it's an impulse that's turned inward, became harmful.
And he believed that we are all born with this capacity for creativity.
That we all have this magic inside of us.
But that we lose it by overanalyzing.
By trying to understand everything with our heads instead of our hearts.
We lose that childlike wonder.
And that intuitive way of seeing the world.
He uses this beautiful metaphor of pushing up like a growing tree, emphasizing hard work, learning from those who came before us.
And this idea of slow, steady growth. Accumulating these small gains without blaming yourself for setbacks.
It's a very grounded, patient approach to development, not getting discouraged when things don't go as planned.
Right. He also liked to present these actions in a paradoxical way. Draw, teach, search, reveal.
Always framed in opposition.
It suggests that these actions are all interconnected, maybe even dependent on each other.
But not in the way we might initially assume.
Like, by teaching, you might discover something new. Or searching might involve a kind of drawing, a way of mapping out ideas.
And he was very critical of the contemporary art of his time.
Oh yeah, feeling that it had lost its naive approach, that it had become too focused on identification as the aesthetic.
Like it was all surface.
Right, lacking depth. He felt we were just skimming along, not really grappling with anything meaningful.
And his analogy of the art critic being like a legless man trying to teach running is pretty cutting.
It's a sharp critique.
Yeah.
He's saying that people who critique art, they often don't have any experience creating it themselves.
There's a disconnect between theory and practice.
Right. He was also fascinated by this human need to make marks. He points that even before we had tools for hunting, we were making marks.
That language itself evolved from pictures.
He's highlighting this very basic, primal human impulse to create, to communicate visually.
And he believed that this way of communicating, it predates language, and in a way, transcends language.
It taps into something deeper,
He also questioned the idea of forcing intention onto art.
saying it can lead to artificiality, quantity over quality.
Like it's more about the genuine impulse, the inner drive to create.
Not about some contrived or overly intellectualized approach.
He compares artists to adults hiding Easter eggs for children, and the historians are the children trying to find them,
It's an interesting way of thinking about the role of the artist.
as if they're embedding these clues, these insights in their work that only get discovered later.
And he warns about the dangers of facility. Yeah. Comparing it to the Midas touch.
So if skill comes too easily, maybe that deeper artistic purpose gets lost.
You get caught up in the technical mastery. But the work itself lacks substance.
And he saw this possible link between the emptiness he felt in a lot of contemporary art and the efforts of critics and historians to fill that void with all sorts of elaborate interpretations.
It's a cynical, but maybe accurate observation. Like they're trying to create meaning where there isn't any.
And he even goes so far as to say that visual arts have finally become non-visual.
A real head scratcher.
Maybe he's talking about the increasing emphasis on concepts and theories in art.
That sometimes the visual experience itself gets lost.
He also connects the practice of zazen, this state of aimless mind focusing itself, to the artistic process.
It's about a different kind of attention. Not forced, not directed.
But still focused. And this kind of awareness can lead to breakthroughs.
To new insights. To create solutions that you wouldn't arrive at through purely logical thinking.
He encourages artists to approach their work playfully, without fear or self-doubt.
To embrace the process. To not be afraid to experiment.
And even though it might just look like drawing, he sees it as much more than that.
Right. It's not just about making marks on paper. It's about exploring.
He talks about drawing on paper, in the world and in the mind.
So it's a tool for understanding, for seeing things in new ways, not just a technical skill.
In both drawing and concept, he says, they exist outside of language.
He's pointing to those limitations of words again, that sometimes we just can't fully express certain ideas through language.
He makes this interesting observation about haiku. He says that words are natural in haiku because the idea is simple, but the reaction is profound.
It's the power of brevity, distilling an idea down to its essence.
A few carefully chosen words can trigger such a deep response.
Emotionally, intellectually.
He talks about finding your own mystic switch.
That intuitive sense of knowing what's true.
But he cautions that it's not constant. It comes and goes.
So it's about learning to trust your intuition.
But also recognizing its fluidity.
And he offers this paradoxical advice about looking and seeing, failing and succeeding.
He seems to be saying that the real value is in the process itself, not in some fixed outcome.
That it's the journey, not the destination.
And he even suggests that true failure might be not engaging at all.
Not even trying.
Because even in our so-called failures, we learn, we grow.
We become more aware.
And he points out how the very structure of language, syntax, can sometimes limit our ability to express nonlinear concepts.
Like language itself can be a cage, trapping us in certain ways of thinking.
And he's always emphasizing this idea of recreate recreation.
The power of art to renew us, to transform us.
He also talks about how activities like drawing, reading, music, when they're not fully engaging our logical mind, can allow this Zen mind to emerge.
It's like letting go of that conscious control, creating space for these intuitive insights to bubble up.
For solutions to appear.
Right. And he noticed a resistance to simply learning, like people wanted to feel it, think it through for themselves.
And then he says, I didn't learn anything new, but I know a lot more now. It's about a deeper understanding that goes beyond just acquiring information.
It's that experiential knowing we talked about earlier.
And then there's this classic line, we have nothing to fear but fear ourselves.
A good reminder that the biggest obstacles are often internal,
It's our own limiting beliefs, our anxieties.
that hold us back more than anything in the outside world.
He connects to that Zen concept of always being Buddha but forgetting.
And the shift from simply knowing to really knowing.
This idea that we all have this innate wisdom, this enlightenment, but it gets clouded over by our everyday thoughts and perceptions.
And the only way to access it, to truly know, is through direct experience.
He uses this lovely metaphor of mirrors, talking about their inherent magic and how we're all mirrors for each other.
It speaks to this interconnectedness, this idea that we learn about ourselves by seeing ourselves reflected back in others.
And he talks about the jump.
The unknowing of water by fish, of air by birds, like we're often oblivious to the very things that sustain
It
us.
should be because they're always there. We take them for granted.
And he contrasts magic for power, which he sees as negative, with magic for seeing, which is positive,
He associates magic for seeing with true understanding.
and a deeper connection to life itself, not just to our culture or our ideas.
He makes an interesting point about how real seeing can be deceptive, and then he defines art as partial retention.
So it's like we can never really fully grasp reality. We can only hold on to these fragments
And art is one way of doing that.
of preserving these glimpses.
And then he gives this playful instruction, fool the eye, fool the mind.
Like he's trying to trick us into seeing things in a new light, to bypass our normal modes of perception.
He talks about the dilemma that artists face, balancing technique and the societal demand for novelty.
And the freedom that comes with anonymity.
It's a constant juggling act.
Trying to stay true to your own vision while navigating the pressures of the art world.
And he laments the popularization of things like yin and yang and mandalas.
Echoing that symbolist idea that over-explanation diminishes the essence of a symbol.
That its power lies in its mystery.
Right. And he has this beautiful, bittersweet reflection on communication.
That it can be a source of wonder, but also sadness.
Because even though it connects us, it can never fully bridge the gap between our minds.
And then he says, how nice to finally mix fun and art.
A moment of pure joy.
Recognizing that art doesn't always have to be so serious.
Right. It can be playful. It can be fun.
He also talks about how the passage of time and all those external influences, they affect an artist's work.
That both intention and form evolve over time.
And he points out how hard...